Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another TechCheck Plus live stream. It is very early here in San Francisco. This is why I have this background. It's about 5:30 in the morning. It's 8:30 on the East Coast. CZ, welcome. I'm thrilled that you are joining us today, Binance's CEO. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Deirdre.
I'm guessing it's not as early where you are. A little bit later in the day?
Yeah, it's 4:30 p.m. in Dubai.
Okay, there we go. So very early here. Hopefully you're winding down your day. So I'm so glad to have you on this format. As I was telling you, it's a live stream. So whoever's watching too on Twitter, on YouTube, I think we got to get this chat enabled, but write in with your questions, comments. We'll get them to CZ. Let's start with the big news. You guys, your US arm just raised its first funding round at a valuation of $4.5 billion. CZ, I want to ask you about this valuation. Your 24-hour trading volume is about a third bigger than that of FTX, yet you were valued at far less than that crypto exchange. Why is that? Is that a Binance issue? What was the valuation? What went into that?
So I think this is the first round of fundraising for Binance US. And so I think the valuation, we always want to leave some value on the table for the investors so that we want there to be room for growth. And we don't want to realize all the full value. And also Binance US, I think compared to FTX, FTX is more heavily based in the US. So they may, I don't know, that may be a premium, but we actually don't really strive for full maximum value on each raise.
Does any of it have to do with the sell-off that we have seen in public markets? I mean, Coinbase, as you know well, although I think in terms of at least trading volume, you're worth more, but public markets have not been kind even to crypto companies.
I think the private rounds are less affected by the public rounds. I think the most crypto company valuations are still quite high. The multiples are quite good in the private rounds. But for Binance US, we want to get a few strong investors who share the long-term vision on board, and we want to leave value on the table. Yeah.
And as you look towards an eventual IPO, I know that your US CEO, Brian Schroeder, said that would be about 2 to 3 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for, and that should also coincide with that's generally the right time frame. Yeah.
What do you want to be in place? How will you know it's the right time to go public in the US?
I think just more. I think right now Binance US has 45 state licenses. We need to get to 48 or so. I think there's 3 states which don't require licenses. And then also just getting more users and getting more trading volume and having broader reach to the users.
So how do you do that? How do you increase users? As I noted, you're kind of in the middle. Your trading volume is far less than that at Coinbase, more than that at FTX. Your fees, though, are much lower than Coinbase's. How do you get more users onto your platform?
So I think we typically employ a strategy where we use low fees. So we don't spend that much on advertising. That's just not in our mentality. So we let other people advertise for the industry. And then when we raise money, we probably will, Binance US probably will go for even lower fees. So that, when we raise money, we just use that to give back to our users. We offer a much lower fee platform, and it's basically as simple as that. Binance do have a. Sorry, yeah.
Just on that point, CZ, so you guys don't plan to spend much on advertising, marketing here in the US, because that is such a difference to other exchanges where we're really inundated with advertising. I mean, you look at the Super Bowl and it was crypto companies spending tons of money, but you don't think you need to?
I don't think we need to do that. I think advertising is great. I mean, it gives more exposure to the mass consumers, etc. But I think we want to focus much more on product, service, and our users. How to just give directly to them.
But how do you get the word out there then, especially when this industry is in such early stages and people are coming to crypto for the very first time? Are you putting yourself at a disadvantage if you're letting your competitors advertise to that still massive group?
I think that's not a problem. I think the word of mouth is still the strongest tool for acquiring users. I think that when people see an ad, they understand it's an ad. But when they hear from their friends that they're using Binance, etc., then that's a much stronger that's much more convincing for them in our experience. So we just focus on building a great product and offer them at the lowest fee possible, and that typically works.
But as you kind of mentioned, FTX may be getting a premium because it's an American company. Do you think that even here, American companies have the edge?
I think there may be a little bit of an edge. We are not so concerned about what other people do. So it's good for them that they get a higher valuation or a premium. If that's the case, I'm actually not too sure. And we just do what we do, and we continue to build our product.
Okay, you're sounding very, giving me Jeff Bezos vibes. I remember, Amazon has famously never worried too much about the competition. CZ, I'm not sure if you heard that famous investor Jim Chanos, he was on our network a few weeks ago, and he said he was short Coinbase on the expectation of fee compression. He doesn't think that the company will actually be profitable this year. What do you say to that? I mean, there's so much competition here. I know that you have the lowest fees, but is this just a race to the bottom?
I think on the fees, most likely it will be a race to the bottom, at least in the short term. So I think we are prepared to do that race, and we most likely will lead it. So we may cause that, and I believe that Binance US have a very strong advantage in terms of it's very small team, much lower cost base, and they should be able to. And with the fundraise, that they should be able to sustain for a long time. So I think that's going to happen. Yeah.
How do you become profitable? How do you make profits if fees are a race to the bottom? Where else are you bringing in money?
Actually, so Binance US has been profitable ever since since a few months into the inception. Like I think less than a year, they became profitable. The profit margins are pretty decent now with the fundraise. It's very easy for them to lower fees almost even to zero for like a few years.
But in the long term, CZ, where are you earning money? If fees go to zero or near zero, what other products do you have where you're earning money?
So I think for an exchange, for a crypto business, there's many different ways to earn money potentially. There's fees, there's staking, interest earnings on holdings. We typically like to give all of that to the users because some cryptocurrency generates yields just by themselves. But currently, I think in the US, there's some legal or some regulatory restrictions around that. Nobody's offering that. There are other things like margin trading. If we can offer that in the future, margin typically you can charge interest for people who borrow money, and then you can also pay. We would like to pay most of that interest to the users who lend money to the traders. So there's many different models, and the fees doesn't need to be that high. I think if you run an efficient business, you can be very low fees.
Okay, but what you just said is sort of you prefer to get the yield to the customer. So my question is, where does Binance make money? If you guys are going to IPO in 2 to 3 years, what are you showing investors in terms of profitability? Or do you think that even 2-3 years from now, that'll be too early? Investors won't demand profits.
I think so what I said is typically we would make a little bit of money so we probably will not go to completely zero fees. We may do that for a period of time, but we'll just charge a much lower fee. And on the interest rates, the borrowers will probably have to pay a higher interest rate than what we give to the lenders. So we again charge a little bit of a difference, and that should be sufficient. I think in 2 to 3 years, yeah.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In 2 to 3 years, the profit pressure is not going to be that high.
Okay, because you will be making profits.
I think the company will be number one will be sustainable. They also have investors who are giving them pretty decent money, like a couple $100 million even with this low valuation.
But what you're talking about, CZ, is at its core a price war, and you're saying that you could go to zero. Are you aiming to put other platforms, other exchanges out of business?
Well, no, we actually want other people to be. We also want other exchanges to be growing. I think the industry is so small. We're nowhere near saturation point. We don't need the other exchanges to do badly for one exchange to do well. I think it's not a saturated market. And also, it's actually better to have multiple competition so that we can drive the best deals for the users. So it's just natural. There is somewhat of a natural competition. It's not we want to kill the other guys. It's just that every industry player should should work really hard and do their best to provide the best value to the users, and that's all it is.
Okay, I want to move on to sort of the broader space. Crypto this year in 2022 has really been characterized by some of these massive hacks. There was Wormhole, Axie Infinity, which I know you guys know well, Qubit Finance. Isn't crypto, the technology, supposed to make cyber attacks more difficult to carry out? Would you say that this is sort of an accurate characterization of crypto in 2022?
Well, there's a few different things. I think people got to realize that there's almost never 100% security. So when people say there's 100% security, they probably don't really understand security. If a meteoroid hits Earth, then everything we have probably will be gone. And the Bitcoin blockchain has been very secure, and it has been been around for 13 years, and people have looked at all different kind of ways to attack it. They have not been able to crack the Bitcoin protocol. Your own computer, it may not be that safe. If you have a virus on your computer, you have a wallet holding your Bitcoins on your computer, then you could easily lose that. And today, most people cannot prevent their computers from getting infected by a virus. For example, most people don't have that technical ability to keep their computers completely clean. There's new blockchains, new protocols, new smart contracts people make, and sometimes they do contain security vulnerabilities. It's software, it's code. So security problems do happen. And I think the key is so that hopefully when those things happen, we keep them at a small enough size that we as an industry can tolerate that and move on. So that's what's happened recently with Axie Infinity.
That one, though, was not a small vulnerability. And we should tell our audience as well that in the case of MAVIS, which is the owner of Axie Infinity, Binance led a $150 million round to reimburse victims. But talk about this attack in particular. I mean, I know what you're saying is there's different levels of cyber attacks, even within crypto, but this one really looked like a classical phishing attack. How can MAVIS and Ronin be truly decentralized if that can happen? I spoke to someone recently who said that maybe the network and Ronin just isn't that good. Has intrinsic problems.
Yeah, so my basic layman understanding of the security attack is that it's one of the bridges that got hacked. So it's software it's just software. Sometimes software have bugs, and software that can be exploited. So it just happened, and the amount involved is quite significant from from layman terms. It's like $600 million in US dollar terms. But MAVIS, Axie Infinity has been a very strong team. They delivered a lot more value than that to the industry and for themselves. They're valued much higher than that. The entire company, the organization is valued at a few $billion. So it's not like they created much more value than that. It's just that cash wise, ETH wise, because they lost quite a lot of Ether. Ether wise, they may not have that cash right away, and if they buy on the open market, they may push the Ether price up quite quickly. And we help them to bridge that gap, and we want to help protect strong projects and also protect their users.
So CZ, what do you think is behind, what is driving crypto prices, and specifically Bitcoin and Ether, which is negative on the year?
I think fundamentally what drives prices in the long term is just utilities. If a lot of people use something, then it has value. More people use it, the higher the value. So I think that's all it is to in what we call utility value. At short term, there's a lot of market psychology, news, FUD, positive news as well. So many different things. Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of talk of regulation here in the U.S., and you even have comments from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen this morning. What regulations would you put on DeFi if you were a regulator?
That's a tough one. So DeFi is very hard to regulate because anybody can deploy a smart contract on a blockchain, and when you start regulating in one jurisdiction, people move to different jurisdictions. And a developer in Russia or China can deploy a code very easily. I would say it's a bit too early to regulate DeFi, to be honest. I think we should let the industry grow a bit and then see what things are in place. I would recommend
but there's
starting
problems with regulating later. We've certainly seen that with the big tech companies. Don't we need some? You think it's impossible to put some kind of framework in place before the industry develops? Because often we've seen this in technology time and time again. Once it does develop, it's very hard to go back and regulate.
But I think, but also without the industry developing to some extent, you can't foresee what kind of products there will be. So I think for DeFi, I think a simple registration process to identify who's behind the smart contract, who's holding the keys for certain things, are there security processes in place? Those things I think are probably good to start with, and then let's evolve from there.
Okay, and then let's go back a step. If you were a U.S. regulator, how would you regulate crypto exchanges?
Again, so I would. So I think we're still pretty early in the process. Honestly, if it was for me, I would highly recommend setting up a new agency to regulate cryptocurrency exchange or just the crypto industry. U.S. have a lot of regulatory bodies, but most of those regulatory bodies are responsible for a existing legacy, what we call legacy industry.
Yeah.
They need to take care of the interests of the existing players like banks, stock markets, etc. Those things are very different from what crypto players like to see or need, or what the crypto industry needs. So sometimes they're same, sometimes they're different. I think the U.S. has a long history of caring about KYC, AML, terrorist attacks, etc. So those things are very important. When we can keep those things. But then the crypto industry has certain new requirements or differences that currently the mindset of existing regulators are still attached to the existing industries. That's our recommendation, but it's quite difficult to do in a large country like the US, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting recommendation. Who would lead that agency? Do you think that SEC Chair Gary Gensler would be a good person? Yes, he regulates traditional finance, but he does have, good experience in crypto.
Actually, I think he would be a fantastic person, but right now he needs to protect the stock market. So I think if we give him new mandate to say, look, how do we grow this crypto industry? He has a fantastic understanding of the crypto industry. But right now he has to wear two hats.
So who would make up this new agency? Who do you think they should look for? What kind of experience would be needed if you were going to create a new agency in the U.S. specifically to regulate crypto?
So ideally, somebody who has a lot of experience with tech. So because crypto industry is very tech heavy. And somebody who's very open-minded. So I don't know all the players in the U.S. to be very frank, but this is the similar recommendations we give to countries all around the world. Form a new agency, that's better.
That's interesting. Okay, I want to move on to sort of Web3 more broadly. What do you think about Web2 companies entering Web3? Do you think that they can do so in a meaningful way?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think any business can benefit from using Web3 cryptocurrencies, decentralization. Startups can leverage that, and existing businesses can leverage that. Newspapers can do that. Music industry can do that. Sports industry can do that. Gaming industry can do that. Real estate industry can do that. So I think Web2 companies are already having an advantage because most Web2 businesses are global. It's a website. Just add crypto to it.
Does that compromise Web3 principles if you have a Web2 company built on the basis of centralization? Pave the way? Should they be new companies if it's going to be Web3? Does that create any problems?
No, I think in a decentralized environment, we should never exclude any centralized party. Now, if we have a lot of different centralized parties, that is decentralized. If we only have one, if there's one monopoly, like Amazon pretty much owns the e-commerce market, yes, then that's less decentralized. But in a decentralized world, you cannot force people to decentralize. Okay. In the decentralized world, it should be like, okay, look, if the business has strong network effect and they were able to win users over and over again, that's their strength. And for in a decentralized world, if you complain about that, you should find out what they're weak on and offer a better alternative. So in a decentralized, the definition of a decentralized world is that no one should control the industry by saying, hey, look, I'm going to break up Amazon, or I'm going to break up this large player.
Right. But when we talked earlier about regulation, you said that maybe, in decentralized finance, there should be one person that has to register. That is at odds with what you're saying.
No, I think what I said is I would recommend if we want to start to regulate DeFi, the first step would be to let people register as DeFi founders if they want to. And that's multiple projects registering. That's not that would be a recommendation to make the industry more transparent.
Okay.
But to be honest, in real life, it might be pretty hard to enforce.
And I got to ask you, do you have any thoughts on Elon Musk buying 9% of Twitter and joining the board? Do you think that there is a Web3 play here?
So number one, I think it's fantastic that he's involved in Twitter now, and he's a big Twitter user, and he has tons of fans. I also think that yes, absolutely. Luckily, both Jack Dorsey and him are quite early understanders. They understand crypto. Yes, and the current CEO. So I think that's definitely a Web3 play for Twitter. And to be honest, most of the global crypto community congregates on Twitter. So we call crypto Twitter. So yeah, I think that there's definitely a play there.
What does the Web3 Twitter look like?
Well, I think nobody knows what Web3 really is, but there's many things that crypto could do. Twitter could do. Well, there's tipping, which they're already like playing with. There's NFTs, like you can NFT your tweets. I think more fundamentally, they can probably just remove all ads and they could potentially issue a token and use that to incentivize their users and have economic business models in place. So there's many different things they could do. Yeah.
What do you think the implications are for free speech? We know that Elon Musk has been tweeting a lot about it. Do you think that decentralized blockchain could kind of finally take the issue of content moderation out of the hands of executives? What do you think that is something that maybe Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey are looking at, and Parag Agrawal?
Yes. So I'm sure Elon's a big. I think Elon's a big guy on free speech, and I think that's very important. But in practice, it's not that simple when you're running a centralized platform. Twitter is still a centralized platform. And even with decentralized platforms, if you let free speech go completely wild, if you look at the comments on any of my tweets, there's like anytime I open my comments to anyone can comment. There's tons of bots that are scammers, spammers. Do you moderate that or not? I would love for that to be moderated more heavily to push out the spammers. Like my tweet comments, if I open up, like it's painful.
But what about the further implications of that? Do you think that certain people, like former President Donald Trump, should be taken off Twitter?
Right. So then that comes when you start to moderate, then that has like, well, what about? So there will always be differences in opinions on what you should remove or not remove. That then the but I do believe in today's world, so whether Donald's Twitter accounts should be blocked or not, I don't know. I don't follow U.S. politics that closely, to be very frank. But you either don't do moderation at all, which today will probably make the platform fail. Most people will leave the platform if there's just tons of scammers and you don't police it at all. And it just creates a nasty user experience. But when you start to moderate, where do you stop? Which is a question. So there's always a balance. If we do 100% free speech, I think many platforms try to do that, and what you get is a very bad user experience, actually.
I want to go to a few questions after this, but just to clarify at the top as well, when you said that Binance will go to 0 or very little fees, are you guys planning on going to 0 fees anytime soon? How long would that last?
I'm not sure yet, to be honest. Like, so we're just discussing that. So I may have jumped the gun a bit because you asked about it. So I don't have all the details, but we'll work it out. I don't want to jump the gun on that.
Okay, interesting idea. Let us know when you guys have that sorted out. Okay, I want to do kind of like a lightning round question, CZ. I know you've spent a lot of time with us already, but I think these are kind of some user questions that people are interested in. The first one: what is your top project after Binance Smart Chain? Your top project, yeah.
So I don't run that many projects in Binance, to be very frank. So today I'm spending most of my time on regulatory compliance, etc. I think that's one of the most immediate projects we need to get over. So that's kind of where I'm spending most of my time traveling, meeting with different regulators, etc.
Okay, what is your favorite layer 1 blockchain?
Yeah, BNB chain.
Second.
Second, I like so I like all the top ones, to be honest. Bitcoin, Ethereum, even if you look at the top 10 or even the top 100, we're very supportive. I'm generally supportive of all of them.
You're being very diplomatic. I don't blame you, CZ. Okay, what will be the dominant stablecoin 5 years from now?
Very hard to predict. Again, so as an exchange, we're neutral. So we don't pick projects, we don't pick stable coins. We provide what people use. Yeah.
But you've seen Circle's market cap and its use case rise in recent months quicker than that of Tether. Do you think that that's a sign of more to come? Do you think that Circle could unseat Tether as the dominant stablecoin?
I think anybody can unseat anybody else. I think it's great that Circle is growing quite strongly, and I think that's good to see. We want the industry and the users to have as many choices as they can. I think Circle USDC is a very strong choice right now, which is fantastic.
Okay, I don't know. Have you heard of Zuckbucks? Have you been reading about it? Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg's idea of a digital currency.
Actually, I haven't read too much about it, to be very frank.
Okay, so no opinion there. What about Miami Coin?
I did read about it a little bit, but I think it's still quite small. So I think it's very interesting for cities to issue their coins. The key is to add as many utilities as you can to whatever coin that you have. So I think right now Miami Coin is still pretty early. But I did when I heard about it, I did actually search about it and read about it for for a little bit. So we want to be very supportive.
Do you own any NFTs, CZ?
I have like 3 or 4 NFTs, mostly given to me. I'm not a collector, so I'm not an arts guy. I'm also not a trader, so I don't really trade. So I haven't really bought my own NFTs.
Do you think they're good investments?
Well, I think in any new industry, the majority of them will fail. There will be a few successful ones that will increase in value in the long term exponentially. So it's always tricky to know which ones they are.
What about sports NFTs? Do you think that they're interesting and in the long run they're going to be legit?
I think so. I think there's definitely a use case for NFTs with sports. You can do ticketing, you can do merchandise authentication, you can have IPs, etc. So NFTs, the technology I believe will stay, and it opens up doors for many use cases, which is fantastic. So I think in sports, NFTs can be used very heavily.
Last one for you, CZ. Which different kinds of crypto? I don't know if you can answer this. Which crypto do you hold?
It's very simple. I hold BNB and BTC. I bought BTC in 2014. That's it. I still hold them, and then I have BNB myself, and that's it. I only hold those 2.
Interesting. Why is that?
I don't have time to look at other crypto. Like most people think I know a lot. I know every crypto out there, but that's not true. I got a company to run. I got regulators to talk to. I got prime ministers to talk to. So I actually don't have time to read about different cryptocurrencies. I actually don't recommend, for most people, I don't recommend people to hold more than 5 to 10 cryptocurrencies. Because if you hold less than 5, you can pretty much follow the company, follow those projects very carefully. And whenever there's a piece of news about them, you can understand the implications. And you can know the founders' personalities to at least to some public extent. when you invest in 50 coins, you have a very superficial understanding of each coin. You basically just, unless you're a very good technical analyst, you can read charts and stuff like that. Only 10% of people can do that very well. So I actually recommend people to not hold a large number of coins, but follow 3 to 5 coins that you really like and invest in those. Yeah.
That's practical. Good practical advice, CZ. What about crypto-focused funds that are like Sequoias or Bain Capital that are focused on investing in all sorts of different kinds of tokens? Is it okay in that case because they have bigger teams?
Yeah. So for those guys are professional investors, and they also know how to deal with risk. So they invest in internet companies. 99% of them fail, and the 1% that's successful bring them to where they are today. Those guys have much higher risk tolerances, and they know what they're doing. So we don't need to worry too much about them.
Finally, CZ, you said you're spending most of your time on regulation, speaking to world leaders. Are you planning a trip over to the U.S. anytime soon? Maybe go to Washington to speak to some of the regulators and leaders there?
I definitely hope so. So the way I view the world is, in the U.S., there's a few strong players doing all the work in the U.S. already, and U.S. is quite good in terms of banking support for cryptocurrency exchanges. U.S. is actually leading the world. U.S. is a little bit limited on the product offerings, and I think many of the U.S. guys are working very hard on that. Whereas the rest of the world, there's not enough people working on the rest of the world, which, I've been trying to do that part a little bit. But I definitely hope to make a trip to the US very soon.
Well, keep us posted. We'd love to have you on CNBC in person. CZ, thanks for spending time with us. I think we went more than half an hour. So thank you so much. We covered a lot of ground, and we hope to talk to you again soon.